My name is Jordan Farmer. This is the Uncommon Conversations podcast, episode 33. And today's guest is actually a guy from TikTok. Onto the podcast. His name's Adam, and he agreed to come on, which I thought was really cool. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of things, including up to raccoons and a lot of things you probably did not expect us to talk about. So I'm very much looking forward to this podcast. I think it's going to be very interesting. We're going to have a lot of interesting things that we talk about. Going to try to live up to the idea that this is an political program. So we'll see how I do. There we go. Try this again. Hello, everyone. We got another podcast happening today, 2 in 1. I'm very excited. For some reason, it seems like there we go. He's here. He has arrived.
Oh, what's going on, man?
It's good to have
you. Can
you
hear
on,
me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. The sounds great. The angle's great. I appreciate it. I love that gray shirt. It looks nice and sharp on you. That's cool. How you doing, man? How's your day been?
Rough, man. We got family coming in that I don't like from out of town, so you know how that goes.
Yeah, that's always a challenge. You gotta either decide, okay, am I gonna be real or am I gonna get along?
Always real.
Always real. Yep. I actually don't know you that well. For anyone who's an audience member here, I don't know this gentleman very well. So we're going to be getting to know each other as much as we are going to be talking about whatever we're talking about. So what has been first off, I'd love an intro to you, and then also more specifically your political journey up until this point. How do you find yourself where you're at now, and where are you at right now?
40, born in North Dakota, raised in Las Vegas in a shop. I've built custom cars and bikes for 25 years, and that's that story. That's all I've ever done. I was raised by my grandparents, so I'm a little more old school conservative. I wouldn't say I'm Republican. I'm not Democrat. I'm more for the people than anything. If you look at America as a business, basically it's the best businessman for the job. And from my views, it's usually a conservative point of view. So,
Cool.
been in St. Louis since February. I actually came out here for a brief moment when all the rioting was happening a couple miles away in Ferguson, where my grandmother and elderly family lived, and just been out here with them ever since she got sick.
Did she get sick from COVID, or was it unrelated?
It was the vaccine, actually.
So what happened with that? I love that story.
So she got the first shot.
Pfizer?
Started, I think it was Pfizer, yes. Quote me on that. I believe it was Pfizer. She started having heart palpitations, then her blood pressure was through the roof. Then she went and got the second one as recommended. Now she has uncontrollable trembling, seizures, and mind you, she was perfectly healthy before this, and now she's on hospice care. So.
Well, that hits you right in the soul.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I got one Pfizer shot. I got sick about 40 minutes before I got the shot. I started getting flu-like symptoms anyway, so I think my family got sick, so I got a bug that was coming through the family. And I got that first Pfizer shot in the same 1 hour window. And I've always kicked flu's asses in 18 hours or less. I've always been that person where I need to go sleep and then I rest and I'm good and I get back to it. I might be tired the next day and that's about it. And that's the way it's always been. And luckily my mom was not super into vaccinations. We were not the kind of family we were always looking to deal with it or look for natural remedies or just take a shower and sleep, if we can handle something instead of lots of these things. And so I was blessed in that area to definitely look to that sort of whole philosophy of dealing with your health in that way versus like run to the doctor, run to the doctor, run to the doctor.
Yeah.
And so my girlfriend, my grandparents, and I believe one of my cousins, her husband, and a bunch of other people have gotten vaccines in my family too, and none of them have had any issues
That's good.
that I've been made aware of. So, we're very blessed to have that. Um, but when I got, so since I got that one shot, I haven't gotten the second one. That was probably 7, 8 months ago or something. Since I got that first shot, my heart has definitely felt weaker. I've had more issues with shortness of breath and definitely had some things on that front. It's hard to tell because I'm overweight and also I haven't been exercising, and so it's just a little trickier to sort of determine what everything's come from. I've been feeling better and better, so in terms of heart health and things like that, kitty, um, and so that's definitely been good. But that definitely has had me. That's been in the back of my mind for months now. Is like, what is
Oh yeah.
that? What am I dealing with? And
Yeah.
a certain amount of fear and not getting it checked out for sure, which is not the smartest thing.
Well,
Um,
and I think what it does, it's not so much the side effects right away, it's over time because it literally kills your entire immune system when you get the shot. So you lack the antibodies and everything else to fight anything else off. So even if the vaccine doesn't get you sick or kill you, you have no immune system at that point. So even if you caught pneumonia or something else, you have no immune system to fight it.
and now is
So,
that because the shots sort of make your immune system go haywire to fight the one thing,
um,
or is it a
well, it's the
direct? What is the mechanism there? If you know of the mechanism.
don't quote me on this. From what I understand, it's the synthetic DNA properties they put into it that are supposed to mask and manipulate your antibodies into making you better, but it takes so long to accumulate and rebuild back up that you're susceptible to anything for a long period of time.
Hmm. Okay. I yeah my my only I don't really have that deep of a level of understanding in terms of what's happening. I know that the what it's doing is it's giving you it's basically like taking a portion of it's taking the genetic material of a portion of the virus and putting it into your body so that it fuses
Actually,
with
not
that and then creates some new protein.
actually not true. There has only been one that is currently, and it's a booster that actually has a part of the virus itself in it. Other than that, it's all synthetic nanites.
All synthetic nanoparticles.
Yep.
Okay. In terms of like the mRNA vaccines and stuff, right? Not the
Yeah.
other ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay then. Then that and so what those are. Okay. And so
So
what is the theory behind what those are doing? Could you try to explain that again? Obviously, we're not experts, but
yeah, yeah. I
we're
mean,
trying to understand.
they say that it helps, but I don't see any positivity to it. I mean, unless you're like a younger, more agile person who can still fight stuff off, anybody over the age of 35 is susceptible to any amount of horrible things that are normal but can kill you because you don't have an immune system anymore. And like for instance, like a common cold or COVID or any of that shit, because you don't have the natural immunities to it, you've erased your immune system, your body has no real way to fight it off. So, and that's like anybody who's had the vaccines now, because it's compromised their immune system, they're going to have to rely on booster shots for years and years to come just to fight off every other sickness. So this isn't something that's just a one or two and done. This is going to be something repetitive for years to come.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That go ahead.
and you know the human body, yes, there are special cases where people are sick or have genetic defects or stuff where this could benefit them, but for the average American, their own body should be able to fight it off naturally by itself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm definitely. It's interesting. I was just talking to a guy earlier, and I was talking about how if someone tells you to go get the vaccine, like everyone's quiet, but if
Yeah.
someone tells you to do anything else, go see your doctor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like we only care about that individual medical perspective and expertise as it relates to challenging your deviation from the norm. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like this is what we should all do, and if you think differently, go listen to someone who will tell you why you're wrong. Like that's
Yeah.
the conversation. When obviously that is not a conversation.
That's
Um,
90% of the hate that I get on TikTok is because I'm not anti-vax, I'm not pro-vax, but I believe they need to disclose everything. I mean, there's thousands of Americans that this is severely handicapped, disabled, or even killed that there's no record of it anywhere except for the public putting it out there because it's happening to them.
and because the expert class can just negate all anecdotal evidence,
Yeah.
they just don't pay attention. And what's interesting is I've been going back and forth with this New York University professor who has taught classes on statistics, and so he's very much not just informed but also arrogant, and like his identity is infused with this way of thinking about things. And I just
Yeah.
pointed out to him, and he couldn't connect the dots. I pointed out to him uh, issues with women's menstrual cycles and issues with the heart palpitation thing in young men specifically were rumors and anecdotes at first, and now they've become actual lines of study that have proven to
Yeah.
show some sort of so the anecdotes of today are the initial data points of the studies of tomorrow. And so to like it's our
100%.
first line of data. And
Yeah.
so when I was listening to it in the beginning and knew, there were rumors about fertility issues. There were rumors. My mom has a lot of lymphatic system issues. I heard rumors about issues with the nanoparticles and getting in and out of the lymphatic system and stuff. And all those kinds of things. I was just like, okay, those are just on the prospect that there might be a risk there. Don't do it, because especially for
Exactly.
people that are younger and going to have children, you want to
Yeah.
maintain your fertility. We have a whole, like, younger people that can still have kids and want to have kids have a totally different frame on the world when it comes to risking things being put into their body than anyone else, because we still want to
Yeah.
do that. That's still on the
Yeah.
table. If you've already had kids, you're not, if your balls stop working for that reason, it's not really the end of the world. But if you want to have kids, then now you're talking about being robbed of one of the essential, like, beautiful
Exactly.
aspects of being a human being. Now it's,
And yeah, well, and that's one of my major issues with how hard they're pushing this. This thing is pushed harder than anything in human history. There's little science to back up the actual benefits of it, and a lot more negatives. Plus, they're trying to vaccinate anyone under the age of 12, I believe it is, everywhere for schools, California, New York. And then what makes me even question it even more, okay, you're not considered fully vaccinated until you've had your second dose and it's been 14 days. So, like, say for you, for instance, you've had one shot. If the nanotechnology in that by chance had caused you to pass away due to blood clots, heart palpitation, anything, you're not considered a COVID death because you're not fully vaccinated.
yeah, that was one of the first times where I had maybe 5 or 6 friends on Facebook all jump down my throat in the same post. Was when I shared a Steven Crowder video talking about the first 25,000 or so. There's several things he talked about in the video. It was like 25, 30 minutes. One of the things he talked about was that the first 25,000 COVID deaths were literally just based off of symptoms and like looking back at what patients might have had in recent weeks and saying, oh, they probably died because of that. And like, that's not even a controversial thing to say. They would look at it that way. They would think that way because it is the doctor assessing what the cause of death is ultimately.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's perfect. It's not even like a conspiracy theory that they would do that, but it obviously complicates the data in a certain obvious way. The
Well, there's been
comorbidities issue, and
yeah.
like the positives are, like you said, crammed down your throat, even if there aren't very many. The negatives are buried. People don't, like, if you die from it, you're not going to go report it, first off. But second, like, you're like, not many people, and I'm guilty of this too. I haven't gone and reported anything. I didn't even know which agency it was that I was supposed to go to. I don't really deal with, in my life, I don't call up organizations and try to deal with them. I hate people that are like stuck in bureaucratic processes, and it just kind of annoys me. So that's my own fault. I'm not saying that that's anything but a flaw in me, but that's that. I know that because if it's in me and I've seen other people doing it, I can broaden it out to the society and say the negatives are being underreported. It's being sold more like anything else, and more than anything, that same New York University professor, we were going back and forth, and I was saying, like, the virus is doing the harm to people, And getting the vaccine, even if it's everything you say it is only marginally reducing the risk of contracting and spreading this disease. Meaning,
Yes.
two vaccinated people can harm each other,
Yes. Yes.
and one vaccinated person in the chain of viral custody, so to speak, a vaccinated person can infect an unvaccinated person. So even the
Yep.
concept
Yeah.
of the unvaccinated person is harming the vaccinated person isn't actually true. It's a lot of assumptions of guilt and responsibility, and technically can go the other way. And like I said, vaccinated
Exactly.
people still represent a threat to each other that everyone has to
Yeah.
consent to when you go into work. Now, I was just like, dude, this is totalitarian bullshit, and we shouldn't
Yeah.
be doing this. That was my initial take, because I feel like that sometimes the truth is simple enough. You don't need to get down into the philosophy of harm and vaccines and all this crap in the workplace and public, whatever, and then what it means when you lose your job. But because this New
Yeah.
York University professor, like I said, identifies the way he does, I had to go deep. I wrote down 30 or 40 little thoughts that I worked off of, and then tried to like piece together into other things and tried to work through this whole. That's just how I always do it. I just have a thought,
Yeah.
write it down, have another thought, write it down, then go back and just try to like
Yeah.
flesh it all out as best I can. When it's something complicated enough to where you have to write it down and stuff like
Oh,
that,
yeah. And this is
like figuring
definitely
out the
complicated.
tax rate on something is a lot simpler.
Well, yeah, and this is definitely a complicated situation, and it leads you to wonder, like, is the vaccine actually there to help us? Is it for this reason? And I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists and bullshit out there, but a lot of it makes sense. I mean, if you sit there and think about it, some of it makes sense, some of it's very far-fetched, but, like, why are they pushing it so hard? Because as you said, it doesn't matter whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you have boosters, you don't, you're still going to get sick. I don't see that it would lessen your chances of dying from COVID because you have no immune system. You're strictly relying on the nanoparticles and whatever else is actually in that shot to protect you. So,
Yeah,
and I'm all for it. If you want to get the shot, I'm not going to judge you. There's there's hundreds of nurses that have left jobs from each state. Why did those nurses leave if it's so safe? They're the front lines. They see it every day. You know what I mean? And then
yeah.
you have the ones now that we're left with. I don't know if you pay attention to my TikTok, but like the video I posted last night, I was going to bed and I saw a video of this nurse in New York, and she's just arrogant, like making fun of people that don't see her point of view, and because she's like a far leftist, she just downplays anybody that doesn't do what she deems responsible, and completely pushes the vaccine. It's almost like she's paid to do what she does, to be honest with you, the way
Yeah.
she pushes it. But it's like, is that the kind of medical care we're left with now? Like,
Well, on that
you know,
note, imagine this scenario, and you don't even have to imagine it because there's so many people we're talking about here. It's going to be true. Imagine your boss owns stock in Pfizer,
mm-hmm.
and he owns the hospital, and he can tell you what you're going to say. Otherwise, you lose your job. You're not even being paid to say it, but you are kind of being paid to say it. It's like the opposite. The fear of the removal of you being paid is keeping you towing the line. And everyone knows that corporations work this way. They want you to toe the line. They want good spokespeople. And I went to my local, here in Stockton, California, I went to my local little office because I love talking to people about politics, obviously. And none of them could talk to me about anything, because it's the procedures and the rules. So they just won't. So even if I'm like, okay, is there too much bureaucratic, like I wanted to ask a question like, is there too much bureaucratic paperwork? What services do you guys provide at the city that I can know to tell other people? They wouldn't talk to me about anything. And that's day one, low-level office worker at your county office of bullshit. Let alone, you know, you've been in your career of politics for 50 years talking to billionaires and selling them out through lobbyists and all that kind of stuff for decades. Like there's that full spectrum. And so when people, I just shared a post today, and it was Alex Jones, and it said, when someone says that the government would never do that to you, they care about you. And it's him going like, are you kidding me? Like,
that's
not
usually
only
the next
that, but
thing
I'll
they
take
do.
it one step further. The idea that they can't keep these secrets secret, but like so much stuff that's come out of the CIA, like think about the way we think about UFOs now versus 3 years ago, and that's 100% the lies that they were successful at keeping buried. If the only people that will talk you label as crazy, and no one else will talk, well, then you just assume the only people that could believe this is a crazy person. Even if it's just like they just will use the games to make you think that the person who deviates
Well,
from the norm is a crazy person, and you don't listen.
and I'll be honest, living in Las Vegas for as many years as I did, I'm not far from where Area 51 is supposed to be, Nellis Air Force Base. That is the main Air Force base for all drones, everything else for the military. We see a lot of things out there that probably could have been UFOs, but we don't know because there's so much shit out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The
I've
one of my
definitely seen some strange stuff.
Me too. Me too. I've seen some strange stuff in Colorado in the mountains, the Misty Mountains
Mm-hmm.
back there, where
Yep.
where there's very few people and it's very easy to hide stuff, um, which is like the central theme of where these places. Like to me, if you wanted to show up and not get caught, like you don't go to the heart of LA, obviously.
No.
Um, but anyways, yeah, me and my girl, we've seen some stuff too that makes you think. Um, Before all this stuff came out, this was like 2017, 2018 or something like that. So maybe as it started to come out, the more recent stuff. But I've been a subscriber to this, that like you cannot rule out what you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And so like it's been rephrased by this guy Dan Pena, who's a Scottish. I mean, he's Mexican American, then moved to Scotland, does business stuff. Anyways, he says absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, which just means that just because you don't have proof that something does exist doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means you don't have proof that it does exist. Like you can never disprove something. So
not only that, you would have to be crazy to think that we are the only life forms with any type of intelligence in this entire solar system, galaxy, whatever the fuck is out there. Pardon my French. I'm trying to keep my
I don't care about cursing. It's all good. I don't give a fuck.
Good. That's been the hardest part of doing this so far. But like it would be hard to believe that there's not other intelligent life out there. You know what I mean? It baffles my mind. Because yes, humans are capable of evolution, independent thought, everything else, but thousands of years ago when shit was built, like yes, humans might have been that smart, but they had to have a kick from somewhere. Like all the evolutionary mental advances had to come from one place. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think either, well, when we start what's cool about this, because I thought about this years ago, is when we start venturing into these types of discussions, like the difference between God being this, being outside of our dimension that, created everything in existence and then ultimately planned for us to arrive on life on this earth. And when we did, like, first off, I subscribe, like that's a whole thing in a different, different podcast. But anyways, taking that concept and sort of translating it to life was seeded on Earth by an advanced super civilization somewhere else that pre-existed us, sort of touches on the same notes of a supreme higher order being coming and giving us the gift of life and creating something out of nothing in this on this planet. And then even then you got to ask, obviously, where did they come from? Where did this start? Exactly. And then even then, if it's all nestled within this universe, how did the universe come into existence? And I'm sort of I like the natural law. No, the telos. I think it's a Hebrew, like Judaism. It's sort of a Jewish concept. Basically, where you look at something and you can infer the meaning or the purpose of it through that. Yeah. In the broadest sense of the world, or in the broadest sense of everything, the reason why we're not formless nothing in a giant void that has nothing going on is because that's kind of its own hell. But also because to be something and have the meaning of a finite life and existence and specific things you're dealing with is obviously going to be more interesting and meaningful than being the all formless nothing. And so something exists instead of nothing for a reason, because there is something to be gotten out of these individual experiences that couldn't be found in that formless nothing. On that formless nothing note, I had a dream when I was younger that I went to heaven, and I was there in a bunch of mist around me. I had no body, no form, no, like I could tell I was doing this, but I couldn't see anything,
Yeah.
like no body to be seen or anything. And there was this giant sort of force up there, and there was formless nothing everywhere, but I could tell there was a central force, and we were all just sort of here amongst this place in connecting to the thing. And I realized it was boring, and it was kind of hell if you were stuck there for all of eternity. Like when I was
Oh
there
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
dream, I was sitting there like, and this is it? And that, I think that dream sort of planted that idea in my head a long time ago, that there's something to this beyond, like there's something to this specifically that has value beyond the stuff beyond this.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so,
And
anyways,
I'm actually well versed in a lot of this stuff, and we could do a whole nother podcast on that another day.
yeah, for
Because
sure. Well, I'm happy
that's
to go
something
as
we can go
deep
on for
as you
hours.
want. I don't know who I'm like, because we don't know each other. I don't know how deep into what you want to go to and how into
Yeah.
rabbit holes you like. Just from this conversation, I can glean that A, you're very intelligent. B, you're very much like plugged in and want to be informed. You think about things in a very good way, and you're happy to go deep. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah. So if you want to jump in anything, we can, or we can sort of move on to the next
That's up to
major
you.
thing.
I know you had a few topics you wanted to touch on today from what you sent me. So I mean that's up to you, man. It's your show. I'm just here to be the
Okay.
guy.
Yeah, I'm always being deferential, so I end up not guiding my own show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I just want these things so we have a sense of what we can talk about once we get into the
Oh yeah.
conversation. But more often than not, I touch 30% of that list.
I'll
So
be honest with you. There's no anything in a healthy manner. Did you go? Can you see me? Am I back?
sorry, you slowed down for a second.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's having issues. Um, yeah, you'll have to drop off, and then we'll try to get you back on, I think. Hello. All right, I just invited him. Hopefully, he'll come back on, and we'll be better plugged in. All right,
Hey, how we
we're
doing?
good.
Sorry,
Cool.
the internet sucks here sometimes.
It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, I mean, I'm perfect with any type of casual conversation you want, man. I'm very easygoing when it comes to conversations. So
That's good. That's good. I try to be the same way. Um, well, yeah. I, I grew up. My grandfather's a pastor, and
yeah,
I grew up knowing God sort of as a concept and a word, and a lot of wise things came from my grandfather, like the idea that a relationship with God is more important than an allegiance to a church, and like religion. Like religion and church are sort of meaningless actions unless the other part of it is like the real deal.
yeah,
Um, and and so there was a lot of really wise things that I got grounded in as a young kid. But when I turned 17, 18, I started to um, question everything, just from the point that I had not figured it out for myself, and I had just
yeah,
relied upon other people. And so I had to go through everything, and that took me onto a path of being agnostic for a while, because I thought there were some concrete, like, misrepresentations of history. I don't mean like miracles and stuff, but like specifically like there was this person in this place and there's documents. Uh, I was worried that the Bible was factually inaccurate in saying that there was anything that happened, like from the Hebrews fleeing Egypt, the chariots and everything that got caught in the ocean. They had not found it up until that point. So I thought, so the evidence was that was probably bunk, but sort of this, absence of evidence thing, they found it later, and then it was sort of
yeah,
fixed. But that sparked me going on the journey of questioning things for myself. And what I was able to do is explore enough intellectually to come across Jordan Peterson and his work on on the structure of human belief systems and how deeply our belief systems are a part of our world and the way
Yeah.
we perceive things. And also, he sort of linked together science and religion in a way that was really cool. So it was sort of a co-evolution of narrative and human beings together,
Yeah. Yeah.
along with ultimate truth being discovered in the process.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so basically, so humans have a nature, and we're biological creatures, so that nature isn't going to change. And if you just listen to all your base instincts or sinful ways, slapping a girl on the butt whenever you feel like it, or anything like that, or a guy, whatever you fancy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't live your life on your base instincts and have it amount to anything other than a disaster. You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to make a judgment, turn to a higher ideal of way of being. And if you think that there is such a thing as a higher way or ideal of being for humans to emulate, there's going to be some ultimate version of that. And
Yeah.
so the process of us discovering God has been us trying to discover what it means to live as a human in the ultimate way, and that studying it from that perspective and trying to reverse engineer divine truth from that perspective um, was sort of how I found my way back to being able to see God in a world that made sense to me. Like to the degree that it was just like I'm just shoving this in there to say it
Yeah.
fits when it doesn't, was inauthentic to me, both within myself and to other people. My grandfather
Exactly.
was a
Yeah.
pastor, so I had to have that conversation a few years into this where I said, I'm not a Christian anymore. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
I cannot call myself that in good conscience. And that was not easy in a
Yeah. Oh
family
yeah.
where in a family he's the patriarch of the family, and deviating from Christianity and not being a Christian anymore was about as taboo in my family as anything would be, more
Yeah.
so than being gay or a drug addict or anything else that you might think of. And so that was its own thing. Anyways.
Yeah. I was. So my grandfather was very much religious before. He was World War II. He did a tour of all of Europe back. One of the wisest men ever. I'm grateful that my grandparents raised me. If my mom had, I would have been a fucking shit show. But um, like my conception of it growing up is that yes, whether you call it God, whether you call it creator, whatever it is to you as a person, it definitely exists in way, shape, or fashion. I personally believe that yes, a lot of stuff that's in the Bible and depicted happened, stuff like that. But I think a lot of the book itself and a lot of religion is based around structure because as human beings, we crave structure. So like that's how you were saying where like science and religion kind of coexist together. I 100% understand that. And like me myself, I believe there's a higher being of some sort or higher power, whatever you want to call it. I don't have a well, I mean, I guess I'd have a direct connection to it, but like my morals, like I believe as long as you live a morally good life, like us as humans, we're sinners. That's what we're biologically programmed to do, like you just said. Like you're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, it doesn't matter. We're very carnal when it comes to stuff like that. And, the same as like your beliefs, like I've questioned mine off and on whether it was all just bullshit or if it's something I should believe in. And what I came to find out is through myself, as long as I believe that there's something out there and I try and live the best morally decent life I can, that everything will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with that. I think. Oh, go ahead.
Is that you going out or me?